Hi guys, so I'm here today to do a book haul. You know the score, so let's just jump straight in, shall we? Let's start with what's probably the most important book in this haul, and that is the illustrated Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban by J.K. Rowling. This was very kindly sent to me by the people over at Bloomsbury Kids, and I am so excited to have a copy of this one. I bought the Sorcerer's Stone Illustrated Edition back when it came out. I've yet to acquire the Chamber of Secrets, so I'm probably going to need to get that at some point to fill in the gap. But The Prisoner of Azkaban has a special place in my heart, as I think it does for a lot of people. I think it marked a real turning point for the series, and it introduced my favourite character of the whole series, which is Remus Lupin, and I'm so excited to have all of those moments illustrated. And just for reference, here's an example of one of the beautiful full 2-page spreads from the book, which is Harry, Ron and Hermione in the pet shop before Hermione buys Crookshanks. Another good one is this one here of Buckbeak and the rest of the hippogriffs in Care of Magical Creatures. But you all know what Harry Potter is. I don't need to explain it to you, I just need to highlight how beautiful this is. Next up is something a little bit different though, because it's a practical book and it is a cookbook. It is Easy Vegetarian One Pot Recipes. Delicious fuss-free recipes for hearty meals. And this is published by Ryland Peters and Small, and it's pretty self-explanatory for the title. These are all vegetarian recipes that literally involve you bunging all of the ingredients either in a pot or a baking tray and cooking them. It is full of pictures, which I absolutely require from a cookbook. Who else finds it incredibly frustrating when cookbooks only have pictures for like every 5th recipe? They look delicious, a mixture of things that involve a little bit more ingredients and some that are even simpler, but as you can tell from the title, it is meant to be quite easy cooking, even if it involves a few ingredients. And that, my friends, is my level of cooking. I like to just bung and leave. Although I like trying new things and making new meals for myself, I'm not incredibly keen on cooking that involves like 100 different steps and it needs me to be there for hours with the food. I don't have time for that, to be honest, so I'm really happy about this. But back to the more traditional books, I got 3 collections of poetry recently. So the first one is Autobiography of Red by Anne Carson. Anne Carson is a classicist who I have read in the form of translations of Sappho, but I've never read any of her own poetry. This is a long epic poem which follows a character called Geryon, who is this red-winged beast, and its relationship with Heracles. I obviously haven't read this, so I only know what it says on the inside flap, but I've heard amazing things about Anne Carson's poetry. I've been meaning to get around to her for ages. This is definitely one of her most famous poems, so I'm super excited to finally read it. The next 2 collections of poetry I've actually already read and reviewed, so I will link the wrap-up in which I reviewed both of them somewhere. And the first one is You Sad Feminist by Megan Beach. I adored this collection. It's my second collection by Megan Beach. She only has 2 out at the moment, but I've loved both of them and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It deals with feminism, activism and depression, and kind of how to, you know, continue to fight for what you believe in while still taking care of yourself and your mental health and not beating yourself up. And it's beautiful and so comforting and so inspiring, and I would recommend everybody read it. Then I have And Still I Rise by Maya Angelou. I only paid £2.50 for this. It was in Fop, which is a record store, and you know, it's worth way more than that, but I was very pleased to get it for such a bargain price. Maya Angelou is pretty famous. I've read her first autobiography, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, which is definitely one of her most famous works, and this is my first time reading some of her poetry. I really enjoyed it. It deals with a whole array of themes, from love, lust, relationships, the body, to freedom and slavery and oppression, and it is just wonderful. She really is a classic, so definitely worth giving a shot if you're into poetry. But on the topic of bargains, I also picked up another book for £1 in a charity shop, and that is The Crimson Petal and the White by Michel Faber. I've actually yet to read any Michel Faber, but I now own 3 of his books. I know. This is probably the chunkiest one that I own, if not he's written, but it gets so much praise. It's a historical novel. The back says, step into Victorian London and meet a host of unforgettable characters, including our heroine Sugar, a young woman trying to drag herself up from the gutter any way she can. So yeah, I think it's meant to be just a really beautifully written, immersive, historical novel, and everybody seems to love it. So for £1 I really couldn't resist. The next book was actually a gift from my friend Jen, whose YouTube channel I will link down below, and it is such a wonderful, thoughtful gift. It is Sisters of the Revolution, a feminist speculative fiction anthology, edited by Anne and Jeff Vandermeer and published by PM Press. I think this sounds amazing. It's a collection of short stories by a whole array of authors, many of whose names I'm sure you'll recognise. We've got Octavia E. Butler, Angela Carter, Ursula K. Le Guin, Joanna Russ, Catherine M. Valenti, Nedia Corrifor, and many, many more. So some I've already read, some I've been meaning to read, and some I've never heard of, so I think this is going to be a really wonderful way to discover new speculative fiction authors, especially within the sort of feminist subcategory. A few of these authors are actually on my 100 Women I Want to Read list, which you can find on my blog, and I just simply cannot wait to give this one a shot, for hopefully it will fill all of my feminist science fiction needs. Next up I have a non-fiction book, and that is Riot Days by Maria Aliokina, and this is about the Pussy Riot women who were imprisoned in Russia. They put on a performance of Mother Mary Punish Putin in a Russian church and were arrested for hooliganism and religious offences, I guess, and yeah, put in prison essentially for political protest, and it was pretty big in the news at the time, and I think it's this book, which is one of the women's personal experiences, is going to be incredibly moving and inspiring and invigorating, and something we definitely need to keep in our minds. It's certainly not something that should be forgotten. On the topic of non-fiction, kind of, I have Off the Record by Jonathan Pie. Jonathan Pie is a comedian. It's not the comedian's actual name, but this is the character he plays. He has a YouTube channel. It's incredibly funny. It's both comedy but also political commentary, and it's just most of the time incredibly spot on. It makes you laugh and nod along and think, yes, why are we not all saying this? How can politicians and people in the media get away with this? It's so stupid. And he's really, really funny, and this is his first book. It takes 10 political figures and just basically tears them apart. But as you might have seen, that book was in 3 for 2 at Blackwell's. So I was in Blackwell's with my friend Jill, whose channel I will also link down below, and we both had books that were in 3 for 2, so we thought, is there a book we both want and we will get it together and share it? So we got our third book together for free, and this one that we picked is The Witches of New York by Amy Mackay. I'd actually heard of this recently because somebody, I think, recommended it on my 3 witchy book video, which again I'll link somewhere around here if you're interested in more witchy books. This is a historical one. It's set in the 1800s and follows a group of witches who have opened a tea shop in New York. Of course, strange things start to happen. Need I say any more? I think that premise either sells it to you or it doesn't, but I'm hoping to really enjoy this one. It sounds like a bit more of a slightly mysterious, comical, adult witch novel from some of the witch novels I've been reading recently, which were very much on the young adult end of literature, so I'm hoping I'll really enjoy this one. Hopefully Jill will too. We will definitely be chatting about it after we've read it. The next 2 books I have though were sent to me by the publishers, and the first one is Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. This is John Green's latest novel. You're probably familiar with his name whether you've read his books or not. He has a YouTube channel with his brother called Vlog Brothers. He is a pretty well-known YA author. Some of his books have been turned into films. I have read 2 of his books in the past. The Fault in Our Stars, which massively helped me out of a 2 to 3 year reading slump, so I'm incredibly grateful to that book, and Looking for Alaska, which really, really struck a chord with me and was a really wonderful and emotional reading experience and one of my favourite young adult books till this day. I haven't, however, read any more of his books since reading both of those, so I am very excited to have his latest book to give him another shot, as it's been a few years since I read anything by him. This one sounds quite different though from what I'm used to from John Green, and I'll just read you the first little paragraph because I think that's better than me trying to summarise it. 16-year-old Asa never intended to pursue the mystery of fugitive billionaire Russell Pickett, but there's a $100,000 reward at stake, and her best and most fearless friend, Daisy, is eager to investigate, so together they navigate the short distance and broad divides that separate them from Russell Pickett's son, Davis. So this one sounds like more of a mystery detective type book than what I'm used to from John Green anyway, so it'll definitely be interesting and I'm looking forward to giving it a shot. I then have a book which has been very, very much pre-hyped and talked about before its release, and it was sent to me by the publisher. It is, of course, The Book of Dust by Philip Pullman. This is the first volume in La Belle Sauvage, and it is a prequel to his Dark Materials, which is the very famous fantasy series by Philip Pullman. I have read the first two in his Dark Materials and have yet to read the third. Really, I guess I could read this or the third next because this is a prequel, so it wouldn't necessarily matter, but I'm probably going to get around to finally reading the third in the series before reading this, just so I can get the full experience that everybody else has had. But this basically introduces you to many of the characters and elements of the world and magic that you experience in his Dark Materials, some of their origins and kind of fairy tale-esque backgrounds to them, and gives you some backstory to some of the characters I know lots of people loved from the original series. As well as that though, I think you're getting a very new story about a new character and following them on their canoe with their demon, the canoe being called La Belle Sauvage. On the topic of books that were sent to me by publishers, I was very kindly sent a whole set of Moomin books by Profile Books. Now when I was younger I used to watch the Moomins on television, but I have never in my life read a Moomins book. My friend Magdalena, however, is a massive fan, so I am very excited to finally get a chance to experience the joy that she gets from these stories, and I've heard they are wonderful at all ages. The ones I have been sent are Finn Family Moomin Troll. Look at those covers though, just stunning works of art. Comet in Moominland, The Memoirs of Moomin Papa, and Moominland Midwinter. As far as I can remember, the Moomins are Scandinavian trolls and they kind of look like little hippos if you're not familiar with them. They're adorable and I remember really enjoying them on the television, so yeah, like I said, I'm excited to finally give them a shot. It's been a long time since I even came in contact with a Moomin story. If you've read any of these, please do let me know where you would suggest starting. And last but certainly not least, I recently did a video all about the Books Are My Bag Readers Awards shortlists, which I was very kindly sent by Books Are My Bags, and I did an unboxing and discussion video of those. There were a couple in the box, however, that I didn't get a chance to mention in the video, but I'm actually quite intrigued by. I'd never heard of them before seeing the shortlists, so that was my first exposure to them, and I thought I would just mention them in this haul. The first one is Who Let the Gods Out by Maz Evans. This is a children's book, a middle grade book, but it is all about Greek gods. Our main character basically comes in contact with the Greek gods, who are much more comical than they necessarily are in the original stories, and I love the idea of trying out some children's literature that incorporates mythology, Greek mythology, letting you know my thoughts on it. And it means a lot to me that classics and mythology is still very much a part of our everyday culture in whatever little ways, because that present of antiquity throughout many art forms till today is definitely what got me into classics, and I'm doing a PhD in classics, so yeah, I think it's wonderful. So I'm excited to read a comical children's book about the Greek gods. I think this sounds really fun. I then have Birdcage Walk by Helen Dunmore. This is a historical novel set in 1792 during the French Revolution, and I believe it follows our protagonist who wants to be involved in the politics and the revolution and everything that's going on in her country when she gets married, and her husband has different ideas for what she's going to be getting up to, and he tries very hard to control her. So it's about her relationship with her husband and trying to be herself and perhaps break free of this marriage. I'm not exactly sure, I haven't read it, but that's what the back implies to me. The final sentence reads, "But as Dinah's passion for Lizzie darkens, she soon finds herself dangerously alone." So yeah, sort of 1700s controlling relationship story amidst the political turmoil of the French Revolution. I thought that sounded really, really interesting. Not something I've actually really read that much of in novels before, so I'm hoping I enjoy it, and I'm really pleased that I was introduced to it by the Readers Award. But those are all of the new books I have acquired. Do let me know if you have any thoughts on the books I've mentioned in this video. I'd love to talk to you all about them, so please do leave any comments that you do have. And until next time guys, happy reading. I'll see you all again soon. Bye!